Hold on, I'm getting an appropriate background up here. Never fear, for you are here. Yo, Chaos, what's up? Oh, actually, chat might be redundant here. So what I'll do is I won't need the keyboard for now. Hold on, chat. I'm a-comin'. I'm a-comin', chat. I'm a-comin'. Okay, here we go. All right. Yeah, I'm just gonna wait a little more. Bad news. Oh dear. Is everything good? Are you okay? What's going on, friend? Wow, Twitch is janky. It says I have 5 viewers, but I couldn't write anything. Brain decided, nope, no ideas. Hey, dude, if it strikes you later, like, if you have, like, a boom shot of inspiration later, dude, we will do Halloween in December, man. All the time is Halloween. Don't you worry. I've got plenty of material. Plenty. And I've got 3 books worth. I've got Irish Tales of Terror. I've got a Lovecraftian book I can read from. I have this other random book I found. I have plenty of material, so don't you worry about letting anyone down. And so, what I will do... Oh no, not the Irish. Oh yes, the Irish. And if Wolfex is here, I'll tell the story I always tell. The one I've told every year since I've started streaming. But let's see. I will start with the Irish because Zerp seems excited about the Irish. Is that thumping? Yeah, that's real. Oh, okay. The only thing I can think of is a story I never submitted to Last Horror Story, but I'm not even sure I submitted it, not our last time. You can send me the link, dude, and I can take a look at it. But yeah. Let me see here. The first one is called The Man-Wolf by Geraldis Cambrensis, who lived in 1147 to 1223. So, this is an old one. Alright, you guys ready? Let me make sure this is actually 3 pages. It's from page 15 to 18. Oldie but a goodie. It's the first one in the book. About 3 years before the arrival of Prince John in Ireland, it chanced that a certain priest, who was journeying from Ulster toward Meath, was benighted in a wood that lies on the boundaries of Meath, whilst he and the young lad and his companion were watching by a fire they had kindled under the leafy branches of a larch tree. There came up to them a wolf, who immediately addressed them in the following words: "Do not alarm yourselves, and do not be in any way afraid. You need not fear, I say." Actually, you know what? Let me do some voice acting. What's the point of this? Oh, and you sent it to me. At least, okay. Da 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 da. No, you didn't send me this one. Okay, so I will read this one next. How's that? Okay. So, Wolf came up to them and immediately addressed them in the following words: "Do not alarm yourselves, and do not be in any way afraid. You need not fear, I say, where there is no reason for fear." The travelers, nonetheless, were thrown in a great fear, and were astonished. But the wolf reverently called upon the name of God. The priest then adjured him, straightly changing him, by Almighty God, and in the night of the most holy Trinity, that he should do them no sort of harm, but rather tell them what sort of creature he was, who spake with a human voice. The wolf replied with seemly speech, and said, "In number we are 2, to wit a man and a woman, natives of Ossory, and every 7 years, on account of the curse laid upon our folk by the blessed abbot St. Natalis, a brace of us are compelled to throw off the human form and appear in the shape of wolves. At the end of 7 years, if perchance these 2 survive, they are able to return again to their home, reassuming the bodies of men, and another 2 must needs take their place. Howbeit my wife, who labours with me under this sore visitation, lies not far from hence, grievously sick. Wherefore I beseech you, of your good charity, to comfort her with the aid of your priestly office." When he had so said, the wolf led the way to a tree at no great distance, and the priest followed him, trembling at the strangeness of the thing. In the hollow of the tree he beheld a wolfen. I guess it's a she-wolf, and she was groaning piteously, mingled with sad human sighs. Now, when she saw the priest, she thanked him very courteously, and gave praise to God, who had vouchsafed her in such consolation in her hour of utmost need. The priest then shrived her and gave her all the last rites of the Holy Church, so far as he was able. Most earnestly did she entreat him, that she might receive her God, and that he would administer to her the crown of all the body of the Lord. The priest, however, declared that he was not provided with the holy viaticum, when the man-wolf, who had withdrawn apart for a while, came forward and pointed to the wallet, containing a mass book and some consecrated hosts, which, according to the use of his country, the good priest was carrying suspended from his neck under his clothing. The man-wolf entreated him not to deny them any longer the gift of God, which was not to be questioned. Divine Providence had sent them. Moreover, to remove all doubt, using his claw as a hand, he drew off the pelt from the head of the wolfen and folded it back, even as far down as the navel, whereupon it was plainly to be seen the body of an old woman. Upon this, the priest, since she so instantly besought him, urged, though that it may be more by fear than by reasoning, hesitated no longer, but gave her Holy Communion, which she received most devoutly from his hands. Immediately after this, the man-wolf rolled back the skin again, fitting it into its former place. These holy rites having been duly, rather than regularly performed, the man-wolf joined their company by the fire they had kindled under the tree, and showed himself a human being, not a four-footed beast. In the early morning, at cocklight, he led them safely out of the wood, and when he left them to pursue their journey, he pointed them out the best and shortest road, giving them directions for a long way. In taking leave also, he thanked the priest most gratefully, and in good set phrase, for the surpassing kindness he had shown, promising, moreover, that if it were God's will, he should return home, and already 2 parts of the period during which he was under malediction had passed. He would take occasion to give further proof of his gratitude. As they were parting, the priest inquired the man-wolf whether the enemy, the English invader, who had now landed on their shores, would continue long to possess the land. The wolf replied, "On account of the sins of our nation, and their enormous wickedness, the anger of God, falling upon the evil generation, hath delivered them into the hands of their enemies. Therefore, so long as this foreign people shall walk in the way of the Lord, and keep his commandments, they shall be safe and not be subdued. But, and easy is the downward path to iniquity and nature prone to evil, it comes to pass that through dwelling among us, they turn to our whoredoms. They assuredly will provoke the wrath of the Lord upon themselves also." Damn, that is some old English. That grammar is a trip. But yeah, so that's the man-wolf. They didn't quite do horror the same way we did 500 years ago. But that's alright. Alright. And now Old English hits different. It really does. It definitely does. Oh man. It certainly does. Alright. But let's take Coulter Fairy's Revenge next. That's 302. So let me just turn to that page because that's another short one. Alright, so this next one is from Chaos. It's called A Southern Night, from his series Twisted Tales, which I highly recommend. They are very well written. Time for a murder, fairy children. Oh yeah. Alright. I gotta change accents now. The full moon hung high in a starless sky, illuminating the large farmhouse and its equally large cornfield. Crickets chirped while fireflies blinked every now and again. Somewhere, a frog... I read that wrong. I read somewhere a frog cooked in the equally large cornfield. No, that is not what that says. I need to look at this differently. Okay, hold on. The zoom is Shit ain't right here. Okay, here we go. Hold on. Okay, here we go. We're starting again. The full moon hung high in the starless sky. Nah, you're good. I read wrong. My eyes crossed lines. It's completely not your fault. The full moon hung high in the starless sky, illuminating the large farmhouse and its equally large cornfield. Crickets chirped while fireflies blinked every now and again. Somewhere a frog croaked in the forest boarding at the farm. Somewhere a frog croaked in the forest bordering the farm. There we go. I can read. A light wind blew, making the corn stalks look as though they were swaying to the sound of nature. The wind suddenly stopped as the crickets went silent. The firefly's light died out, and the frog seemed to stop mid-croak. For several minutes the world fell silent. Then the corn stalks began to violently shake, as though something was running through the cornfield toward the forest. The porch light of the farmhouse blinked to life as the front door opened and a large built man with a long black beard walked out wearing a sweat-stained white t-shirt, dirty blue jeans. He saw the stalks shaking violently and quickly turned to the barn and saw the barn door slightly ajar. "Son of a bitch!" the man cursed as he quickly ran back inside and grabbed his brown work boots. "What's wrong, Randy?" a woman asked. She had on a white nightgown and had long blonde hair that went down to the lower back. "Well, the cattle got out," Randy explained as he struggled with his bootlaces. "I can get it, Pa," a boy said as he bounded down the stairs. He looked no more than 12 and wore an unbuttoned blue plaid shirt, tan shorts, and dirty holey socks. Looks down at my own feet. "I got this, Junior," Randy said as he got one boot laced and attempted to lace the others. "Aw, come on, Pa. I promise I won't hurt it this time," Junior pleaded before he added, "Please," using his best puppy dog eyes. "Let the boy go, Randy. He needs to learn," the woman said. Randy looked from Junior to his wife and let out a long sigh. All right, Randy said, defeated, before he turned to Junior and added, "Now don't damage the body, Junior. Handle it with care." Junior jumped for joy as he ran past his father. "Thanks, Ma, Pa. I'll bring it back lickety-split," Junior shouted as he ran into the cornfield toward the forest. Randy laughed as he closed the front door, untied his work boot, and placed them back next to the front door. "Don't worry about him, Randy. He'll do fine," his wife reassured him. "I know, Mary, I know. Just wish he showed some more restraint," Randy said. "If I remember correctly, you were rowdy at his age," Mary joked. I know," Randy said before a wolf howl came from the forest. Randy looked out the window and added, "Maybe I should go out and help him." Randy then turned his shotgun, leaning against the wall. Mary lightly placed her hand on his shoulder. "He'll be fine," Mary reassured him before adding, "He knows what lays in the forest, and he's a resourceful boy. He'll be fine." "Mama, Papa, what's going on?" a little girl's voice lazily asked as a 6-year-old girl wearing a Hello Kitty dress walked down the stairs. "Oh, Coraline, did we wake you up, sweetie? I'm sorry," Mary said as she met Coraline. I think Coraline is how you pronounce it. Is it Coraline or Coraline? Oop. Sorry, chaos. She met Coraline at the bottom of the stairs. Mary stroked Coraline's long black hair and she explained what was happening. Who knows? Fair enough. When she finished, she asked Coraline, "Do you want a glass of milk to help you sleep?" Coraline sleepily nodded before Mary took Coraline's hand and led her to the kitchen. The two didn't make it to the kitchen, however. The front door suddenly and violently swung open. It slammed into the wall, leaving large cracks in the drywall, and the bottom hinge snapped off, leaving it hanging from the top one. Standing in the doorway was a large, 6-foot-tall werewolf with black fur. Its lime green eyes shimmered in the moonlight. Its large right claw was clamped around the head of a boy who lay limply on the ground. The boy's soft breathing was overshadowed by the large creature's heavy each breath. Randy narrowed his eyes at the creature before he bellowed out, "Damn it, Junior! You broke the damn door!" "I'm sorry, Pa." The werewolf whined in a deep, gravelly... Oh, whoops. Hold on. "I'm sorry, Pa." The werewolf whined in a deep, gravelly voice before he lifted up the boy's body and said, "I was just excited about bringing him back." Randy rubbed his eyes before he scolded, "Yeah, but you didn't have to tear down the door from its hinges. How many times do I need to tell you? Restrain your strength. I can't keep replacing each door, you trash." The werewolf whined again and slowly shrunk away from the yelling man. "Oh, come on, Randy. He got the boy. Don't yell at the boy," Mary said. Randy sighed and nodded. "Even with the broken door, I'm proud, boy," Randy praised. Werewolf gave him a toothy grin. "Oh, thanks, Pa," the werewolf said. "Mama? Papa?" Coraline began as Three turned to her. She was staring at the boy in the werewolf's claw before she turned to her father and added, "I'm hungry." Dun dun dun! Really good, as always. Alright. Let's switch it up a little bit. Murder! Yay! I love your enthusiasm. On to the murder fairy? Okay, we'll go back to the Irish. Alright, let's go back to the Irish. And then we'll jump over to some Lovecraftian inspired shit. So this next one is called The Fairy's Revenge by... I know this is not how you pronounce it. Sinead? S-I-N... How do you pronounce that? Sinead... Pronunciation... How do you pronounce the Irish name Sinead? It's Sinead. Sinead, okay. So, this story is from Sinead de Valera, who lived from 1889 to 1974. Lovecraft, I'm not allowed near tentacles after SeaWorld incident. That's okay, I won't tell anyone. Okay. Oh, don't step inside that fairy ring, Nuala. Nonsense, Con. The fairies don't come out until midnight, and they will never know I've been inside the ring. I tell you, Nuala, they know everything. Well, I'm sure they will not see any... Oh god, I'm still southern. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Hold on. That was the weirdest blend of Irish and southern. Alright, let's try that again. Oh, don't step inside that fairy ring, Nuala. Nonsense, Con. The fairies don't come out until midnight, and they'll never know I've been inside the ring. I tell you, Nuala, they know everything. Well, I'm sure that... Well, I'm sure they will not see any trace of my footsteps on the soft grass. Look at these lovely white violets. I will pull a bunch of them. The good people would not grudge them to me. Oh, Nuala, they are just as beautiful flowers growing at the other end of the field. Oh god, I'm still southern. Okay, hold on. I'll get the... I'll get the bot up because that one was a good one. that was Southern Irish. That's the first little bit. Oh god, I'm still Southern. I don't know why I think it's so fun. Hold on. Alright, there we go. It should work now. It should work now. At the end of the field. Perhaps, but I like these, and I will have some. You are foolish, Noah. The fairies will have their revenge for this. It is you who are foolish, Con, even though you are 12 years old. If I am 2 years younger, I have more sense than you. Con and Nuala lived with their parents in a remote place in the west of Ireland. Near their homes there were many places where the fairies were said to have their dwellings. Every hill, mound, and lios was said to be under their sway. The children had been constantly warned not to interfere with these places. These are lovely violets, Nuala, said the mother as the children came into the house. Where did you gather them? Nuala hesitated. Where did you gather them? Tell me, said her father. At the fine she. At the fairy ring, stammered Nuala. How often have you been told not to take anything from the fairy ring? Indeed, I hope no harm will come to us for this. Nuala loved flowers. She put the violets in a cup of water and placed the cup beside her bed. When she went into her room that night to undress, she saw that the violets had disappeared. The cup was quite empty. Con was almost asleep when he heard screams from Nuala's room. He and the parents ran to see what was the matter. They found Nuala torn and bleeding. When they looked at the bed, they saw that it was full of sharp thorns. The mother lifted Nuala out. The thorns immediately disappeared. Nuala lay down again. The thorns returned. This is the fairy's revenge, said the mother. Nuala can never sleep in a bed again. Let her get into mine, said Con. I fear that will not go any better, said the father. Nuala got into Con's bed. What the father said was true. The thorns were there as long as she was in the bed. When she left, they at once disappeared. Oh, said the mother, until the fairy's spell is broken, she can never sleep in a bed again. There was a great trouble in the house that night. Poor Nuala had to sleep on a blanket near the fire. While the family were at breakfast the next morning, Sorka, a neighbouring woman, came in. I came to ask for a few eggs, said she. My own hens are not laying. Oh, Sorka, we are in great trouble, said the mother. What is it? asked Sorka. When she heard what had happened, she shook her head and said, This is a bad case. It's very hard to get free from the spell of the fairies. The only thing you can do is try to please them in some way. Do you know any way in which we could please them? Asked the father. Well, I believe they love music. If anyone could play for them while they are dancing, they would grant any request. There's no musician anywhere about here, said the mother. No, said Sorka. It is a pity. You yourself, Siv, never learned music. You have a lovely singing voice. And where's there a whistler like Con? Well, I must be going now. Thanks, Siv, for the eggs. I'm sorry for Nuala, but we all know it's dangerous to interfere with the fairies. Con had been listening attentively to all that was said. Mother, isn't it a pity that there is no one here that could play music for the fairies? I wish I could have learned to play some instrument, he said. What about whistling for them, Con? Asked the mother, laughing. Con would whistle any Con could whistle any tune he heard. His whistling was so clear and sweet that the blackbirds, thrushes, and other birds answered his notes. He laughed when his mother said he could whistle for the fairies, but he decided he would try. He waited till all the family were asleep that night. Then he stole quietly out and went to the fairy ring. The night was dark, but round the ring were little glittering lights shining out like stars from flowers in the grassy ring. One fairy was playing on a little instrument like a flute. Con hid behind a tree. He listened some time to the music in order to learn the air of the tune. The fairies danced around merrily. After a time, the little musician laid down his flute as if he were tired. Con saw the dancers were disappointed. They called out, "We want to continue our dance!" Con from behind the tree began to whistle the dance tune. The fairies seemed delighted. One of them called out, "Who is the mortal that knows our fairy music?" Con, still whistling, came from behind the tree. The fairies danced and danced while he continued to whistle. At last they ceased, and the queen, addressing Con, said, "As a reward of your music, we will grant any request you ask." "Oh," said Con, "I want my sister to be released from a spell." "Spells are placed only on those who interfere with our dwellings," said the queen. "I know that," said Con. "My sister took some flowers from the ring yesterday." "Yes," said the queen, "and by our powers the flowers turned into thorns. She pulled the white violets, which are our special possession. We will not allow any mortal to take anything from the ring without inflicting punishment on the human who does such an act." "Is there any way in which the spell can be removed?" asked Con. "There is, and you have pleased us so much by whistling our fairy tune. We will tell you how it can be done. However, it is a hard task. I will do anything to help my sister." "Very well. Take this basket." She gave him a beautiful little basket made of reeds and lined with soft mosses. "Do not allow any mortal eye to rest on it. When you have finished your work, place it among the tall reeds on the lakeside, where no one will see it. We will take it away in the darkness at night. To brighten your way, take one of these lights. Put it in the basket when you are returning it. Now, go to the end of the field and take the winding road that leads to the Black Mountain." "Is it the mountain where the Black Witch has her home?" "Yes. The witch is very wicked, but we have power to protect you from harm. She sleeps from midnight till dawn. Be sure to get your work done before she wakes. Here's what you have to do. Climb the mountain on the side that faces you as you approach it. There's a lake at the top. Round it is a row of small trees, and creeping round these you will see the Dremeter Gorm, or bittersweet nightshade. Gather as many of the leaves as you can into the basket. Hurry home and put the leaves in your sister's bed, and place the bedclothes over them. The leaves will disappear. The spell will be broken, and your sister's sleep will be sweet and peaceful. You must act quickly, for if the witch hears you, she will make a hole in the mountain, and water will rush down and form a cataract, so that you cannot descend from that side." "What about the other side?" asked Con. "The other side is very steep and slippery as ice, but near the top there is a large flat stone. Rub your bare feet on that stone, and you will be able to get safely down. One thing more. You mustn't tell a mortal about this. Keep it all a strict secret. Stianiat. Good luck." Con followed all of the fairies' directions. Just as he is nearly finished gathering the leaves, the day began to break. He heard a harsh grating voice and the sound of rushing water. He hastened to the far side of the mountain. He had barely reached the stone when he saw the witch had followed him. She would have caught him, only she'd stumbled and fell over a bush. I know that life. Con quickly rubbed his feet on the big stone and began to descend the mountain. As he reached the foot of the mountain, he heard the voice of the witch close behind him. He ran as quickly as he could, but she was gaining on him. Just as she was about to catch hold of his coat, he reached the stream. Witches cannot cross running water. Con jumped across. He looked back to see her dancing and prancing with rage on the other side. He reached home while the family was still in bed. Nuala was asleep in the blanket. Con slipped into her room and placed the leaves in her bed and covered them with the bedclothes. Then he hurried off and put the basket among the reeds. When he came home, breakfast was ready. "I don't trust these fairies. That's why you shouldn't." That implies something's wrong with this stuff. I wouldn't dream of insinuating such a thing. "You got up very early this morning," said the mother. The father, who knew Con was fond of work, said, "I'm sure the lad was doing something useful." Con said nothing. He thought of how happy all of them would be when they knew that the cruel spell was broken. That night at bedtime, he said to Nuala, "You ought to try if the thorns are still in your bed." "Indeed," said the father, "they will surely still be there, for how can we break the cruel spell?" "My poor back is sore from lying on the blanket, but I know the thorns are still there," said Nuala. "Well," Con said, "just try, see if they're gone." "Have sense," said the mother, "and don't bother the poor child." "Well, just to please me, Nuala," urged Con. "Lie down in the bed for just a moment." "All right, Con, just to please you." She turned down the bedclothes and lay down. There were no thorns there. The bed was soft and comfortable, as though through the room there was a fragrant perfume of flowers. "How did all this happen?" asked the father. "Who broke the spell?" asked the mother. Con smiled. "That is my secret," he said. "If it is a secret, my boy," said the father, "keep it to yourself, no matter what may happen." And Con kept his secret forever. Don't steal flowers from people. It's not nice. It'll upset the fairies. They don't like being upset. Nobody likes being upset. I don't like being upset. Alright. Especially not from murder fairies. This is very true. You guys enjoying the Irish stories? You guys like this? I've had this book for ages. It's a good book. We don't fuck with murder fairies. You had better not. You had better not. You are? Alright. So let's go to the friendly demon. $35. I can tell you which book this is. The book is called Irish Tales of Terror, and it's edited by Peter Haining, with an introductory portion from Ray Bradbury. And it's got a whole bunch of authors in it. I especially love the Southern Irish. Alright. The Friendly Demon by Daniel Defoe. We're back in Old English, boys. He was around from 1660 to 1731. Yeah. And he did work with, like, the occult and shit, apparently. Ah, phone. What are you bothering me for? What are you... What are you bothering me for with this? Yeah, bother me on Monday, why don't you? Alright. The Friendly Demon. A gentleman in Ireland, near to the Earl of Orre's house, sending his butler one afternoon to a neighbouring village to buy cards. As he passed a field, espied... Jesus Christ! Grammatically. Dependent clause, dependent clause, dependent clause, dependent clause. Jesus Christ. Okay. Anyway. As he passed a field, espied a company in the middle thereof, sitting round a table, with several dishes of good cheer before them. And moving toward them, they all rose and saluted him, desiring him to sit down and take part with them. But one of them whispered these words in his ear, "Do nothing this company invites you to." Whereupon, he refusing to accept their kindness, the table and all the dainties... What the fuck? Whereupon, he refusing to accept their kindness, the table and all the dainties... Oh, I guess that was just a noun. Okay. The table and all the dainties it was furnished with immediately vanished. But the company fell to dancing and playing upon the divers musical instruments. The butler was a second time solicited to partake of their diversions, but it would not be prevailed upon to engage herself with them. Her? No, I read that right. Okay. Not prevailed upon to engage herself with them. Upon which they left off their merrymaking and fell to work, still pressing the butler to make one among them, but to no purpose, so that upon his third refusal they all vanished and left the butler alone, who in a great consternation returned home without the cards, fell into a fit as he entered the house, but soon recovering his senses, related to his master all that had passed. The following night, one of the ghostly company came to his bedside, and told him that if he offered to stir the next day, he would be carried away. Upon his advice, he kept within till toward the evening, and having occasion to make water, ventured to set foot over the threshold of the door in order to ease himself, for which he had no sooner done, but a rope was cast about his middle, in the sight of several passers-by, and the poor man was hurried from the porch with unaccountable swiftness, followed by many, many persons. But they were not nimble enough to overtake him, till a horseman, well mounted, happened to meet him upon the road, and seeing many followers in pursuit of a man, hurried along in a rope without any one to force him, catched hold of the cord and stopped him in his career, but received for his pains such a strap upon his back with one end of the rope as almost felled him from his horse. However, being a good Christian, he was too strong for the devil, and recovered the butler out of the spirit's clutches, and brought him back to his friends. So, translation, because this was kind of heady. So, somebody told this butler, yo, don't go outside today, because bad shit'll happen. And so, he almost gets through the day, and then he's like, but I really have to go pee. So he left his house to go pee, and he got lassoed by nobody. And so there he is, being dragged out of the town, and the whole town is chasing him, trying to get him back. And a horseman caught hold of him and was able to bring him back. That's the clip notes for that one. The Lord Ore, hearing of the strange passages, for his further satisfaction of the truth thereof, sent for the butler, with leave of his master, to come and continue some days and nights in his house, which in obedience to his lordship, the servant did accordingly, who after his first night's bedding there, reported to the Earl in the morning that his spectre had again been with him, and assured him that on the very day he should be spirited away, in spite of all the measure that could possibly be taken to prevent it. Moral of the story, don't drink water. No! No. Upon which he was conducted into a large room, with a considerable number of holy persons to defend him from the assaults of Satan, among whom was the famous stroker of bewitched persons, Mr. Greytrix, who lived in the neighbourhood, and knew, as may be presumed, how to deal with the devil as well as anybody. Besides, several of the eminent quality were present in the house, among the rest 2 bishops, all waiting the wonderful event of this unaccountable prodigy. Till part of the afternoon was spent, time slid away in nothing but peace and quietness, but at length the enchanted patient was perceived to rise from the floor without any visible assistance, whereupon Mr. Greytrix and other lusty men clapped their arms over his shoulders and endeavoured to weigh him down with their utmost strength, but to no purpose. For the devil proved to be too powerful, and, after a hard struggle on both sides, made them quit their hold, and snatching the butler from them, carried him over their heads and tossed him into the air, to and fro like a dog in a blanket. What the fuck? Why would a dog be in a blanket? Whatever. Several of the company running under the poor wretch to save him from the ground. By which means, when the spirit's frolic was over, they could not find that in all this hurry-scurry the frightened butler had received the least damage, but was left in status quo upon the same premises to prove the devil a liar. The goblins for this bout gave over their pastime and left their May game to take a little repose, that he might in some measure be refreshed against their next sally. The lord ordered the same night 2 of his servants to lie with him, for fear some devil or others should come and catch him napping. Notwithstanding which, the butler told his lordship the next morning that the spirit had again been with him, in the likeness of a quack doctor, and held in his right hand a wooden dish full of grey liquor, like a mess of porridge, at the sight of which he endeavoured to awake his bedfellows. But the spectre told him that his attempts were fruitless, for that his companions were enchanted into a deep sleep, advising him not to be frightened, for he came as a friend, and was the same spirit that had cautioned him in the field against complying with the company there he met, when he was going for the cards, adding that if he had not refused to come into their measures, he had been forever miserable. Also wondered he had escaped the day before, because he knew there were so powerful a combination against him, that for the future there would be no more attempts of the like nature, further telling the poor trembling butler that he knew he was sadly troubled with 2 sorts of fits, and as a friend he had brought with him a medicine that would cure him of both, beseeching him to take it. Then the spiritual doctor asked his patient if he knew him. The butler answered no. "I am," says he, "the wandering ghost of your old acquaintance John Hobby, who has been dead and buried these 7 years, and ever since, for the wickedness of my life, have been lifted into the company of those evil spirits who beheld in the fields. I'm hurried up and down in this restless condition, and doomed to continue in the same wretched way till the day of judgment," adding that had served your Creator in the days of your youth, and offered up your prayers in the morning, before you were sent to your cards, you had not been treated by the spirits that tormented you with such rigor and severity. Had you served your Creator in the days of your youth? Oh, okay, so basically, if you'd prayed to God better, this wouldn't have happened to you. After the butler had reported these marvellous passages to my lord and his family, the 2 bishops that were present, among other quality, were thereupon consulted, whether or no it was proper for the butler to follow the spirit's advice in taking the plantain juice for a cure of his fits, and whether he had done well or ill in refusing the liquid dose which the spectre would have given him. The question at first seemed to be kind of a moot point, but after some struggle and debate, the resolution was that that the butler had acted through the whole affair like a good Christian, and for that it was highly sinful to follow the devil's advice in anything, and that no man should do evil, that the good might come of it. So that, in short, the poor butler, after his fatigue, had no amends for his trouble, but was denied by the bishops the seeming benefit that the spirit intended him. Wow, so this dude just got fucked. Poor dude. Alright. So I'll turn to 202 for the next Irish one. But I will break it up a little bit here for something of a more Lovecraftian nature. Hold on. I gotta turn to the pages. Yeah, and I'll let you guys choose the next Irish one if we want to continue there. But for now, alright, let's go 235. Do 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 Okay, good. So we're in that page. Let's see. Skip talk. Ah, what manner of feast or fiend are ye? Be gone with ye. Alright. So this next story is called Uncles in the Treetops by Daryl Schweitzer. Probably. And this is from like a Lovecraftian anthology of Halloween stories called What October Brings. But yeah, if you want more information, let me know. Yes, I can tell you about it. It was in the leaf-falling time, when Uncle Alazar was in the treetops. He could come close to Earth then, out of the midnight sky. You could hear him among the upper branches in the forest, sometimes skittering like a squirrel, sometimes hovering there, his wings buzzing and fluttering like those of some enormous insect. Whose uncle was he precisely? There were stories about that, often contradictory. I've been hearing them all my life. He was one of us, one of the Burton family, though whose brother and how many generations back was not at all clear. He dwelt among those of air. He spoke to the dark gods. He had gone to them, out into the night, and he had never come back. Not really. Only able to return halfway like that, and was utterly transformed, beyond humanity altogether. Sometimes we Burtons heard him whispering to us. He reached into our dreams. My father had heard him, in his time, and my father's father, and his father, though not my mother, because she was only a Burton by marriage, and there was something about true blood that went on back for years and years, but I digress. Now mind you, the village of Chorazin may be isolated, and it may be different in its customs, but it's still in Pennsylvania, not on Mars. So we do have some things in common with the rest of the world. We have Halloween here. And leaf-falling time, old Indian name, is pretty much the same as Halloween. So we indeed had kids in costumes shuffling noisily through the leaves from house to house collecting candy. They travel in groups only, make all that noise to scare away Zennis, who was once one of us, so the story goes. But he too went into the darkness on such a night and became part of it. Whether he was still alive or not was a matter of some debate. And he supposedly had long, sharp fingers, like twigs. And you really didn't want to meet him. It was on such a night, after the candy and costumes were put away. I'd con as Darth Vader that year, and my brother Joram as a vampire. We sat on our porch in the dark with our parents, my brother and I. He was 10, 3 years younger than me. And 2 very distinguished visitors. Elder Abraham, who is our leader, and his assistant, Brother Azrael. Almost an Undertale name. They questioned Joram and me closely, and spoke to us in a very old-fashioned way that I knew was part of the ritual. My father sat wordlessly, while my mother let out a little sob. This was a serious business. People who went out into the dark sometimes did not come back. Joram, said the elder, tell me in truth, hast thou heard thine uncle's voice clearly, and comprehended his words? Wilt thou act as his messenger? Yes, I will, my brother said, and the elder turned to me. And thou? Yes, me too. He reached out and took both of us by the hand, and joined our hands together, and said, Then you have to go. Go now. I knew the rest. We didn't have to rehearse it. The signs had manifested themselves. The stars had turned in their courses as if tumblers had fallen into place in a lock, and the gateways in the sky were open. And Uncle Alizar could come racing back out of the dark depths to speak with us on this night. It was a very special time, to our people, though not to other Pennsylvanians, I'm sure. A holy time. My father spoke only briefly to me. Thomas, take care of your brother. I will, Dad. So hand in hand, my brother and I went. Could conjure up almost a bucolic scene, despite the spooky undertones. Two boys holding hands for comfort, or so they wouldn't lose one another. Two brothers making their way, noisily at first, kicking up leaves, then less noisily, into the wooded hills beyond the town, to fulfill some ancient rite, like a confirmation or a walkabout, some passage into manhood, perhaps. So we followed the unpaved roads for a little bit, then cut across the fields into the woods, beneath the brilliant stars. And what, I ask you, is wrong with this picture? There are things I have left out. The first is that I hated my brother intensely. I didn't show it, but I had nursed my hatred in secret, almost since when he was born. I didn't even know why at first. He was smarter than me, cleverer. My parents liked him best. When we were very young, he broke my toys because he could. He did better in school. Ours were perhaps the last one-room school in the country, so I saw when he won all the prizes. That meant I lost them. But more than that, he was the one Uncle Alizar had showed a special interest in. It was Joram's dreams that Uncle had entered into, so that Joram would sit up in his bed sometimes and scream out words in strange languages, and then wake up in a sweat, absurd as it seems. Sometimes come to me for comfort, and I pretended to comfort him. But I was false, always false, and I held my hatred in my heart. This was all very distinct from the sounds you overheard at night. Oh, wow. This was all very distinct from sounds you heard overhead at night. That might have been squirrels, or just the wind rattling branches. Or a voice you heard from far off, like somebody shouting from a distant hilltop. And you couldn't make out what they said, only the wailing, trailing cry. That was all my father ever heard. And my grandfather, and my great-grandfather. Because the gods, or those of Earth, or even centrally lost, departed uncles, did not communicate with us all that often. And it was very special when they did, which of course made my brother very special. And I was not. That was the next thing. I'd lied to Elder Abraham. I'd heard nothing myself. Once again, I was false, and to lie to the elder like that is blasphemy, but I did it. And I had no regrets. I had also promised my father that I would take care of my brother. It was a promise I would keep. Oh, yes, I would take care of him. We walked through the woods in the dark. For miles, perhaps. My brother was in some kind of trance, I think. He was humming softly to himself. His eyes were wide, but I don't think he was seeing in the usual way. I had to reach out and push branches out of the way so he wouldn't get smacked in the face. Not that I'd mind him getting smacked in the face, but that it didn't fit with what I had intended, not yet. He seemed to know where he was going. Uncle was in the treetops. I heard him too now, chittering, scrambling from branch to branch, his wings and those of his companions flapping, buzzing heavy upon the air. Dram began to make chittering noises, not bird sounds, more like the sounds of some enormous insect. And he was answered from above. I looked up. There was only darkness, and I could see the stars through the branches, and once, only once, did I see what looked like a black plastic bag detach itself from an upper branch and flutter off into the night, or that it might have been a shadow. I let Joram guide me, even though he couldn't see. I had to reach out and clear the way for him, but he was the one who led me on, even as we descended into the hollow, then climbed a ridge on the other side. The trees seemed larger than I'd ever seen them, towering, the trunks as thick as houses. But that may have also been a trick of the dark, or the night, or the dream which I was pouring into my brother as he chittered and stared blindly ahead. And maybe I wasn't entirely lying after all. Maybe I really did feel a little bit of it. We came to a particularly enormous tree. A beech, felt like, from the smooth bark, with a lot of low branches all the way down the trunk to the ground. My brother began to climb. I climbed after him. By daylight, in the course of normal kid activities, I was actually a pretty good tree climber, but this wasn't like that at all. We went up, and sometimes the angles of the branches and the trunk itself seemed to twist strangely. Several times my brother slipped and almost fell, but I caught hold of him, and he clung to me, whimpering slightly, as if he were half awake and scared in his dream. Did he know what I intended? He had every right to be scared. Still we climbed, and now there were things in the branches with us. Only way out in the swaying ends. And the branches rose and fell, and half-seen shapes lighted on them. The air was filled with buzzing and flapping sounds. Dram made sounds I hadn't known a human throat could ever make, and he was answered by multitudes. Then the branches cleared away, and we were beneath an open, star-filled, moonless sky, and those of air circled around us now. Dram and I sat where the trunk forked, my arm around him, while with my other hand I held onto a branch. I could see them clearly. Black creatures, a little like enormous bats, a little like wasps, but not really like either. And one of them came toward us, chittering, its face aglow, like a paper lantern, its features human, or almost human. And I recognized our legendary relative, the fabled Uncle Alzazar, whose special affinity to our family brought him back to this planet on such occasions as tonight, when the signs were as they needed to be, and the dark, holy rites were to be fulfilled. Now that Uncle was here, and I had used my gibbering brother to guide me to him, I had no further use for Jerome, who I had always hated. So I flung him from me, out among the swaying branches, and down he fell, screaming, thump, 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 crash, thump, and silence. I was almost surprised that none of the winged ones tried to retrieve him, but they didn't. Uncle Alazar hovered before me, his eyes dark, his face inscrutable. "I'm afraid my brother isn't available," I said. "You will have to take me instead." And they did take me. Hard, sharp fingers or claws seized hold of me from every side. Some grabbed me by my hair and lifted me out. I was hanging in the air, with wings whirring and flapping and buzzing all around me. And yes, I was terribly afraid. But I also was filled with a fierce, gasping, greedy joy, because I had done it. And now Uncle Alazar would have to reveal the secrets of the darkness and to the black worlds to me, and I would become very great among our people, a prophet, a very special one indeed, a great one, perhaps able to live for centuries like Elder Abraham, Brother Azrael. Uncle's face floated in front of mine, filled with pale light. He spoke. He made that chittering sound. It's just a noise to me. He paused. He spoke again, as if expecting a reply. I tried to reply, imitating his squeaks and chirps or whatever, and suddenly he drew away. He made a very human "ha" sound, and they dropped me. Down I went, through the branches, screaming. Crash, thump, thump, thump. Crash, thud. There was so much pain. I couldn't move. I don't know if what followed was a dream, because the next thing I knew, Zenas had found me. He of the stiletto-sharp, stick-like fingers, remember? Was naked and very thin. His body elongated almost like a snake, with way too many ribs. And his face was partly man's face, with a wild mass of hair. But his eyes were multifaceted, and there was something very strange about his mouth. His jaws moved sideways, like those of a praying mantis or a hornet. He leaned down, out of my field of view, and came up again, with a mouth full of bloody flesh. Zenas was eating me. I felt the bones of my legs crunching. I screamed and screamed. And he went down and came up again with his mouth full, and gulped it down, the way an animal would, and then went back for more. I knew this couldn't be happening. It was impossible. I should have been dead by now. I should have bled to death. My guts gushing out like water from a balloon that's been splashed open. I went on screaming, and the pain just wouldn't end. Went on and on. I pounded my fists on the ground just to try to make it stop, but it did not stop. At one point, he just stared into my eyes, and I was terribly afraid that he would take them. But he just remained there, making clicking sounds as if he were speaking a language I did not know. He was there long afterwards in my dreams, with his bloody saliva dripping down onto my face, burning. And that's when I woke, in my own room, in my own bed. I was swathed in bandages. My face was covered by something thick and heavy, but I could see out. I could see both my arms were in casts and my legs were gone. They tell me I screamed non-stop for another 6 months. I'd be put in an attic. There are, in Jizaran, lots of embarrassments hidden away in attics. More than once, after I stopped screaming, Elder Abraham and Brother Azrael come to see me, always late at night. They stood silently over my bed, regarding me, saying nothing. I could read nothing in their expressions. Once the elder had a glowing stone with him. She touched my forehead. I didn't dare ask what it was about. I didn't dare say anything. My reason returned, more or less. I had healed as much as I could. I was brought down from the attic. Began my new life as a cripple. My father had built a low wooden cart for me. I could sit in it and reach over the sides to push myself along. No one mentioned Joram. Almost a year had passed. That year, at leaf falling time, or Halloween as you'd call it, I sat with my parents on the porch as costumed children came up, fearfully, to receive a handful of candy and then scamper off. I just sat there in dark, a lump of disfigured flesh. I don't think they knew I was awake or could hear them, and they whispered, "What is it?" And, "I can't be him." It was that year, too, the evening after Halloween, which would be All Souls' Night. Halloween being the eve of All Hallows, get it? And that's what we called it, too. And that Elder Abraham led us all out into the woods, into the bone forest, where generations of bone offerings are dead. Animals, others, dangled from the trees and rattled in the wind. By torchlight, he delivered a memorable sermon. I heard it all. The way was too rough for me to get there in a cart, so my father carried me in a satchel on his back. And I crawled out of the satchel and clung to him, my arms around his neck, and looked over his shoulder and saw the elder in a ceremonial robe, and holding a staff with the glowing stone on the end of it. He spoke about change, transformation, and transfiguration. About how, in the time, the old gods would return and clear off the earth of all human things, and only those of us who were changed in some way would have any place in the new world. And he emphasized something that I thought was aimed just at me. That this change comes as inevitably as leaves falling in autumn, or tide on the seashore rushing in. There is no morality to it, for such things mean nothing to the darkness and those who dwell there. What happens merely happens, because it has happened, because the stars have turned and the gateways between worlds have configured themselves just so. If I'd been better read, better educated, I might have called it fate. That year I became better read and better educated. Get out more, wheeling my way here and there around the village, sometimes scaring the younger children and making other people turn away. For months, I'd been desperately afraid of mirrors. I could feel that my face was thick and stiff and my cheeks didn't move properly. I was afraid of how disfigured I might be. But in time I was angry. I'd become a monster. I should damn well look like a monster. Finally I dared, and snatched up one of my mother's mirrors and saw that I was indeed hideous, as if my face had been half dissolved and partially reshaped, until I looked a little bit like an insect, a little bit like Xenos, although I didn't have multifaceted eyes and my jaws and teeth worked normally. Fate, education, yes. There I went, scurrying and scooting about town, the object of horror and fascination. I went to the general store, where Brother Azrael kept his collection of ancient books and scrolls locked away in a back room. Those weren't just for anybody to read, but he unlocked the door to that room and let me read them. He patiently tutored me in the languages required. He spoke to me of things we'd known about since the most ancient days, since before even Elder Abraham was alive. And Elder Abraham was over 1,000. He remembers when Charlemagne was king, the brother told me. And later, from a more conventional set of encyclopedias, I learned who Charlemagne was. That was the essence of our faith, what other people would call religion, the beliefs of a cult. That we had no faith. That we knew with certain knowledge that Elder Abraham was indeed that old, and there were things in the sky and the earth that you could talk to. And the elder powers would one day rule again, where mankind rules now. Those things are merely true, we know, from what we've seen and what we've done. Yes, I even read part of the Necronomicon. It should not be surprising that someone as eminent as Elder Abraham or Brother Azrael should have a copy. I read it in Latin, which wasn't hard. For all my brother Jerome had excelled me in school, I proved to have a gift for languages once I applied myself. What comforted me most was that nowhere in all of this was there any discussion of right and wrong and morality. It was just as the elder had said. Things happen because they happen. In the large scheme of things, by the standards of the abyss and black worlds beyond the sky, Such human concerns are irrelevant. Therefore I felt no guilt over what I'd done. I'd suffered much, but I was not sorry. It was like the leaves falling, like the tide rushing in the seashore. Also, hey, Chad, sorry. I didn't want to wake you. But there is the VOD, so you can catch up on everything there. I was also still a kid. I was, by my count, more than 15. And I should have been getting a bit old for Halloween, but told my parents that I wanted to go out one last time. And they either felt sorry for me, or maybe they were even afraid, so they didn't stop me as I worked hours on my costume. If I was going to have to move about on wheels, I decided I would go as a tank. I built a shell out of plywood and cardboard, complete with a swiveling turret, and I fitted over my cart, so I could indeed go disguised as a goddamn panzer tank from World War II, complete with an iron cross and swastikas painted on it. Jesus, dude. You didn't go for a Soviet? Alright. As a finishing touch, it was a flame-throwing tank. I rigged up a cigar lighter and an aerosol can in the turret. What the fuck? Dude! I mean, I've hated this narrator for pretty much the whole time, but what a fucking asshole. Hello? Jeez, how long is this? Okay, it's almost over. Alright. This did not work out well. Yeah, no shit, dog. When I trundled up to the first house and shouted, Insert not things I'm gonna say, trick or treat, the aerosol can exploded and the tank went up in a fireball and I set somebody's porch on fire. How does he set that shit up in that state is my question. I have lots of questions. I'm also not sure why he thought it was a good idea to go up to the first house and shout, hail, fuck you, trick or treat, but yeah. I was screaming once more, and I was hurt, but my screams gave way to screeching and chittering, the likes of which no human throat should be able to utter, and I was answered, right there in the town, from some point above the rooftops, and I began to understand what was said. Like I said, I had a gift for languages. Once again, I was in the attic for a while gibbering. The elder came and touched me with his glowing stone once more. I should mention I had only one friend during this period. My parents were my parents, and Brother Azrael was a teacher. But the closest thing I had to a friend was the muddy kid, Jerry. More formally, Jeroboam. He was not like me. Not as he was misshapen or missing any limbs, but his special talent was that he could swim through the earth as if through water, so that any time, day or night, when he felt the call, but especially on certain festivals, he would sink down into the ground without smothering, and converse with our dead ancestors, or with what others lay there. Sometimes he would raise up the dead or bone creatures, like skeletal beasts, for us to ride as we went to our places of worship and sacrifice. The result of this was that he was always dirty. Even when he tried to wash himself, he never got it all. And he could feel the dead beneath the ground whenever he would touch it with his skin. So he went barefoot most of the year, except when it was cold. It was hell in his clothes, too, so he'd turn up at school that way sometimes, barefoot and smeared with mud and nearly naked, but that was just Jerry. He was the one who told me what had happened in the village during the year I was in the attic. Something about a teacher who'd come from the outside, tried to change things, and who died. I thought it was funny. Jerry thought it was sad. Well, he's younger than me. I think despite everything, he just didn't get it. There is no morality. Nothing is right or wrong. Okay, this guy definitely has antisocial personality disorder. Or like something going on. Nevertheless, he was my friend. Even if he did betray me at the end. If that's what he did. It was at the leaf falling time, yet again. Some things happen at particular times because the cycles turn, the gates open. I was in the attic. I wasn't confined there anymore, but I'd grown to like it. It was only because my senses had just begun to change, become more acute, that I heard a very soft footstep on the stairs. Jerry, when he's barefoot like that, can be almost totally silent. But I knew it was him, and it was. He'd been swimming in the earth. Despite the cold of the season, he wore only a pair of filthy denim cutoffs. He was covered with mud, but his face was streaked with tears. He stood at the top of the attic stairs, looked at me, and said softly, "I know what you did." And before I could make any argument about leaves and tides and there being no morality, something clumped and scraped and grabbed Jerry by the hair from behind and threw him, yelping and banging, down the stairs. Joram. Suppose while Jerry was swimming around the graves, he'd met my late brother, and Joram demanded to be taken to visit dear older brother Tommy. And now that that was accomplished, he tossed Jerry aside like an empty candy wrapper. I only had to contend with Joram. You don't grow older when you're dead. So he was still 10 years old. But he had changed. He wore only the shreds of the sheet he'd been buried in. He moved strangely, because his bones were still broken. And his face was terribly pale. His eyes very strange, his fingers long and thin like sharpened sticks. He screamed at me, not in words, but chittering. And I understood how much he hated me. How much he resented that I'd stolen his role in the future among the stars. There is no morality, no right and wrong. We do what we do. He lunged for me, shrieking. His mouth was distorted, almost like an insect's. I could see his teeth were sharp points, his fingernails like knives. But I skittered aside. Since I had very strong arms, there was only half of me left. My body was light, and I had learned how to move like a half-man, Johnny Eck in that movie Freaks. Brother Azrael had a secret TV and VCR hidden in the back room of his store. He showed it to me. There were hoops of rope strung all over the attic rafters, and I grabbed hold of them and swung out of reach, moved like a monkey in the treetops while Joram hissed and shrieked and crashed into furniture and shelves and storage boxes. I made it past him and down the stairs, skittered right over Jerry, who was still lying there, stunned. Joram came after me. That was when I heard real screaming, human screaming from downstairs the parlor. Two voices, a grown man and a woman, in utmost agony. My parents. But by the time I got to them, it was too late. Xenis was there, all awash in blood, looming over them, gobbling. He had killed and partially eaten both of them. There was blood all over the walls and ceiling. Joram was there. He shouted something to Xenis, who looked up and began to follow me. I scrambled out the front door and across the lawn with Joram and Xenis both in close pursuit. I came face to face with Elder Abraham and Brother Azrael, their ceremonial robes, both of them holding burning staves. Behind them, the people of the village were gathered, costumed, not for Halloween festivities. There was Halloween, but something a lot more serious. They all wore masks. Some like skulls, some like beasts, some like nothing that ever walked the earth. Xenis caught hold of me and lifted me up and began to strip away the flesh from my back and shoulders. But Elder Abraham struck him with his staff, and he exploded into a cloud of blood and bones and flesh. Then Brother Azrael struck Joram, and he was gone too. The elder explained that some of us who go into the darkness and are changed come back as failures, or of limited use. But it would not be so for me. Though I was hurt and bleeding, someone bore me up, and I was carried at the head of a procession, along with the elder and the brother, with all the people behind us singing. We filed through the bone forest. We went past the standing stones beyond it, into the woods again, on for miles, on our way lit by burning staves. The light reflected off eyes in the forest. I don't think it was wolves, but we were followed. I was even aware that Jerry was with us for a while, his arms crossed across his bare chest in the cold, limping from where he'd banged his knees on the stairs trying to keep up. We came to a great tree. The elder bade me climb. Jerry didn't try to follow me. He was the earth. He was never a very good climber anyway. Besides, he wasn't supposed to. This climb was for me alone. It was my fate, or my destiny, if you want to call it that. Aldamram spoke to me, in my mind, in the chittering, clicking language of those of the air, not using human words at all any longer. He didn't need to. "All these changes," he said, "all these sufferings and sacrifices are stages in your transformation. For only those who are transformed, one way or another, have any place in the world that is to come. You have climbed, step by step, up a ladder, never faltering in your course, and that is good. You are the one who will climb on our behalf to the realm of the gods, and learn their secrets, and come back to us when it is the season, as their messenger. For this, you must leave your humanity behind, all of it. Shed hate, and fear, and hope, and love, like old clothes." So I climbed, easily seizing one branch after another, swinging like a monkey. The air began to fill with presences with buzzing, flapping wings. Uncle Alazar was there. He bade me come to him, and I let go of the last branch and allowed myself to fall. But this time he and his companions bore me up out of the tree. For an instant I could see the dark hills and the fields, and the few lights of Chorazin in the distance. But then I was surrounded by the stars of space, and I lost all sense of time in that cold, dark voyage. The black planets loomed before me, Yuggoth, and the more distant Shagai, and others without names, beyond the rim. We swooped low through an endless valley lined with frozen gods, those that slept and waited and dreamed while the cycles turned. Their immense shapes were like nothing that had ever walked the earth, or ever will until the end. They spoke to me inside my head in a muted thunder, and I learned their ways. Again, space opened up. We were falling, swirling around and around, into a great whirlpool of the void for 1,000 years, I think, or 1,000,000, or for all of time, while in the far distance, and faintly, I heard the throbbing, pulsating drumming that is the voice of ultimate chaos, which is called Azathoth. There was no morality in all this, no good or evil, right or wrong. These things were, they are, and they shall be. Other such notions I'd left behind, discarded with my humanity. That's the story. Uncle's in the treetops, and so am I. He and his fellows worship me now, because I went so much further than they ever did. I'm like a god to them. Joram is not here, Zenas is not here. Neither Elder Abraham or Brother Azrael, but they can sense my presence and we converse. I returned to Earth, to Chorazin and the Pennsylvania hills, because the time and the seasons and the motions the stars decreed. I fell backward through millions of years. But I did not arrive precisely back at the point from which I departed. I manifested myself to my old friend Jerry, who's a grown man now. They pretty much look the same, long-limbed and smooth-skinned and always covered with mud. I don't know if he was exactly glad to see me, but I don't think he was afraid. The elder and the brother hadn't changed at all. They do not. I can't actually touch the earth. I can't come down. You'll have to come to me if you want to know more. Climb. Yeah, this fucker's the last person I would listen to. But yeah, that was the Lovecraftian one. There's several more in here. But my voice is beginning to go. So I hope I'm not the only one that was confused there. Yeah, Lovecraft is kind of confusing. It makes more sense if you'd seen the beginning. Trust me. Alright, who's still here? It's Edgehead for sure. I think Zerp is still here. Alright, Zerp. You're not here? Yeah, okay. Hello! Do you want another Irish story? Or do you want a story about... Click off stream. God damn it. Do you want another Irish story? You've been sent to Ad Hell. No! Not Ad Hell. That's the worst hell. Good God, my voice is all sorts of... I have not done a story reading stream in a long time. Welcome back. So, do you want one last Irish... Oh, Jesus. Thanks, Edgehead. Oh! So, do you want another Irish one? Or do you want... Oh, God. Why are you wasting your money on me? That's how I feel all the time. We could do an Irish one. We could do another Lovecraftian one. Or I can just read a little poetry. And then we'll go into Mahjong. 5 viewers. What the heck? Irish? We'll do another reading stream, probably, next week. And we can continue reading spooky stories all year round. I certainly don't mind. But this next one is called Witchwood by Lord Dunsany, who lived from 1875 to 1957. I think there are more witches in Ireland than in any other land I know, said Jorkins. Nobody was talking of witches that day at the billiards club. On the other hand, our general conversation was at rather a low ebb, so far as interest was concerned, and not really sufficiently full of even reliable fact for me to pass it on to my readers. And Jorkins' remark was little more than an attempt, for which it was fortunately successful to turn our talk from speculations about technicalities, of which we were not very fully informed, to the story of some fragment of his own life. Jorkins is no scientist, nor does he pretend to be, and yet I believe that when I shall have been able to fit together all the stories of his I have heard, until the end, if one touches the beginning of another, all the way through his life, will be found to be full of material that will be new to science, and which scientists must explain as they may. But now to his story, for his opening remark was, as my reader may have guessed, no more than a prelude to one he is intended to tell. I think somebody said, "Ah, yes, I suppose there are." But it is not important. Which would... yes. Yes. Witch. I remember a man named Defoe, said Jorgens. I think he had once been some kind of general, but he was a nice, quiet fellow when I knew him. I was walking along a road in Ireland. Wait a second. This isn't in Ireland? Is this in England? Fuck. Fuck it, we'll keep the accent. I don't give a fuck. Wait. Walking along a road in Ireland when I first saw him. We trained through a nice estate with little clumps of trees in it here and there. And looking over a hedge, I chanced to see him slipping a ferret into a rabbit hole, and he looked up rather sharply, as if he thought I might be somebody who was going to interfere with him. And when he saw that I wasn't, however he saw that, he gave me a charming smile and said, "I thought you were one of those. Oh, but never mind. I'm just getting a bit of rabbit for my old mother." Sure, no one could object to a man doing that. I agreed, nobody could. And from that we got talking of other things. Good lord, I wish my tongue would fucking work. And presently he told me about one of the clumps quite near us. It was a hazelwood, about 100 yards long, in breadths a little less, and it was called Witchwood, because a witch had once cursed it, he said, so that anyone out in it at night would lose his way and be lost. But it is only a clump, I said. And so it is by day, said Defoe. And what is it by night? I asked. Sure, the curse works then, he said. What does it do? I asked. It's as I said, replied Defoe. You lose your way. In a little wood like that? I asked. Aye, said Defoe. Sure, that's what it looks, and so it does. Well, it isn't any use arguing about witchcraft. The only thing was to test it. And so I said to Defoe, look here, I said. I'll walk through that clump at any time of the night. I'll go in by the far side and come out by the road. Any time after dark will do, said Defoe. Then I'll do it, I said, witch or no witch. Very well, said Defoe. There's no one to stop you, unless Lord Monaghan's the keeper. And he doesn't be getting up late these days, the way he used to when he was younger. Time was, he was a bit wicked, but he'll not bother you now. Well, then I'll try it, I said, if you think no one will mind. So I mind, said Defoe. I'll try it tonight, I said. And you'll be lost, said Defoe. What'd she curse it for? I asked, when that was settled. Aye, there was a bad Lord Monaghan in the old days, Defoe said, and he turned her out of her cottage where this wood is. And he planted birch trees all over her garden, and hazels all the way around. I saw the birches standing all white in the wood, and a few Scotch firs beyond them, and all the rest was hazels. For what do you do it for? I asked. For no reason at all, said Defoe. Only if the poor old woman wouldn't pay her rent. And sure, I don't blame her. And then a rabbit bolted into the little net that Defoe had been waiting for it over a hole. Excuse me a moment, said Defoe. And it really no more than a moment before he'd snapped his neck. It's only for my old mother, he said. Sure, no one in the world will grudge her a rabbit. I entirely agreed with Defoe, and promised not to say a word about the rabbit to anyone, for fear it should come to ears that Defoe had said nothing better to do than listen to that kind of talk, which was not properly their concern at all. And we arranged a meeting next morning in the little neighbouring village, outside a door, within which Defoe said one could get a drink of some sort, though it was nothing like the drink that it used to be in the old days. and I was to tell Tuhei just how I got through the witchwood. And I looked forward to doing so, for I didn't think much of the witch. And I felt pretty sure that I could walk through that wood in less time and with less exertion than it would take me to explain that a witch had not the powers with which Tuhei appeared to credit her. For I could see that he was a decent fellow, would believe whatever I told him. Very unlike the more suspicious kind of devil who would never believe a straight account of anything, if he has not been there himself and seen the whole thing with his own eyes. And I made some little interruption, such as I make from time to time, to forestall any unmannerly discussion that might arrive at the club. I think such interruptions are a good thing. Well, said Jorkins, we parted then, and I remember my words to Tuhei. I don't think it'll take me more than 3 or 4 minutes, even in the dark, to do the longest part of the wood. Well, said Tuhei, the last man I knew that tried it allowed himself 3 or 4 hours. 3 or 4 hours? I exclaimed. Aye, and it wasn't long enough, said Tuhei. Dawn didn't come up for another 2 hours after that. But maybe your honour will do it, being fresh from London and all. And with the help of your Oxford and Cambridge education. He was a polite and pleasant fellow, though pig-headed about the witch. Well, I was saying, a little inn, where they made me very comfortable, and I spent a week there, and got a bit of fishing. A holiday from what? Asked Turbot, who happened to be in the club. Oh, for one thing or another, said Jorkins. Oh, for one thing or another. Various little things, including a bit of work. You may have tried it once, only don't let's talk about that. No, I was on my holiday. Well, I told him I was going out for a short walk. After supper, I wasn't a quarter of an hour's walk from the wood, so I told them I'd be back in half an hour. And they said they would let me in any time, up until 11 o'clock. It was nearly summer, after the mayfly had gone down, and the corncrake had just arrived from the south. I heard its voice as I went in over the fields. There was a line of distant mountains low in the sky. I never knew the names of them, and I waited until they had wholly disappeared, and everything got dim, though some luminous trace of the day was still overhead, and a glimmer shone on the fields. As I left the road, I heard the bark of one dog, and an intense stillness. It was broken after a while by the voice of the corncrake. A dim white moth flew low above the tops of the grasses, bringing a gleam of light that was noticeable and welcome in the huge area of darkness that was gaining upon the world, and somehow gained upon one's spirits, so that one felt all through one the unreasonable awe of the night, an awe that one tried to avoid by keeping away from the trees, and out in the open spaces, where the last of the daylight lingered. It is not a feeling that I can explain, because reason has no concern with it. Nor was there any sense in avoiding the trees and the fields, when the purpose of my journey was to enter a wood. Soon I saw the huge shape standing behind an ash tree, watching me. It turned out to be a horse. It scarcely moved as I went by. The movement, it seemed to feel, was for the daytime, and everything was too hushed and still for it to move now. I went on from the silent figure, and came to still cattle, some standing, some lying down, all equally still. The hush had deepened, and now had held everything. Over the sleeping fields not far away, I saw one light that was all alone in the dimness, glittering at the top of the little hill. Golden radiance, it seemed, small though it was, to be perhaps the first flash of the rising moon. But the moon was in another part of the sky, and I saw it later, a blurred mass of fine gold, nearly hidden in the mist. This light, then, which did not increase, was the bright light of window, one light in all the valley, when all else was curtained. I wondered for a while the glare of it. Then it occurred to me that it must be the house of the priest, and perhaps he kept that light shining so late as a kind of warning that he was there, to whomever might be wandering at such an hour. Again a moth passed by me, and I came to the wood. At the edge of it somebody had lightly cut an ashtray, and the stump of it shone white, and at the gleam of the moth and the far-off glow of the hill, the last lights I saw for some time. As I entered the little wood, I saw at once, what is obvious to anyone who has seen a wood after dark, that the little clump was different to what it had been in the day. Looked larger for one thing, and besides that, looked menacing. But then, for some reason or another, woods at night always do. I don't know quite why. I suppose it's just the way they're made. Well, I didn't think much of that, and for a while I got on very well. The only thing that was troubling me was the faint glow in the sky, which I was afraid might possibly make it an unfair test, as it could be argued that it was not entirely night, while any light was there. But I thought I'd go on and then run through the wood again later, so as to make quite sure. Oh. 1 second. Sorry about that. Not quite sure. I was also among large leaves of cow parsnip at first, growing underneath hazels, and then a faint glow came from the white trunks of the birches. But very soon, as I got deeper into the wood, I was unable to tell them from the grey trunk of the occasional oak, except by feeling the bark, and there was not much use to me, as from what I had seen at the little grove in the distance, I did not know there were any oak trees there, so that they did not help to show me where I was. The birches that stood in the witch's garden were close to the point at which I'd entered the wood, and I'd expected to go through them, and then through the hazels, so as to come out to the road. But I saw no more the glow of the birches, and there were hazels all around me, and as I could tell by their shapes. I was surprised at seeing no birches, but I knew the direction of the road, and I aimed to come out exactly at the gate I knew was there on the roadside, leading to the woods. Perhaps I may offer a suggestion to anyone who at any time be lost in the wood at night, or any time anywhere, and that is that, however sure one may think one is the right direction, yet if one does not recognize the landmarks that are close beside one, one's direction is also wrong. Mistake north for east, and the other points of the compass will come out wrong too. So I went on through the wood thinking I knew the way. Of course I kept straight on in so small a wood, but I got diverted by water. Whether it was the same long strip appearing again and again, I do not know, but it prevented my going straight. And not only that, there was no guide to me whatsoever, and I knew nothing of any stream that entered the wood, and perhaps I could not make out what the water was doing there. Perhaps it was a deep marshy ditch that guarded one side of which wood, or there may have been 4 of them, and I might have come across them all. Whatever it was, I was continually being turned by it. Not that it seemed at first to matter, as I still thought I knew where the road was, but it made my journey slower, because the water often turned me from clearer spaces through which I intended to walk into thicker parts of the wood, and some were so thick that I had to vary my direction again. I went on and on for a very long time, while through the wood I saw the night grow darker, and any glimmer of light that still remained was where it had no use to me up overhead, except where it suddenly flashed in patches of water, and the cow parsnip had ceased, as though I had changed my climate. There had been kind of a hush when I'd entered which wood, as though everything had suddenly held its breath. No dog barked, the corncrake had ceased, and there were no sound from the cattle. And this silence continued the whole time I was in the wood. If I could have heard any sound I had heard before, they might have given me some direction, but the curse didn't seem to allow that. That was what I'd wanted, direction, any direction at all. For I was beginning now to see my idea of the direction of the road was all wrong. Birches by now had been taking the place of hazels. There was the occasional dark pine. I was in an entirely different country. My theory that I knew the way, my knowledge that I was in a little grove, my belief that I could cross it in 3 minutes, all had to go by the board. And I had to acknowledge the fact that I was lost in a forest. I knew that some forests went on for 1,000 miles, and some of them ran straight into the Arctic. It was no use arguing with myself any longer, that I knew where I was. The most important thing for me to do then was to start all over again, unhindered by any theory, that I could get out of the wood, and, looking at things in an entirely new light, to try to find out where I was. The birches somehow seemed to suggest Russia. You may think that's mistaken of me, but I had recognized by now that I knew nothing of my whereabouts wherever, and that I might find just as likely to be in one place as another. That's how I felt when my cocksureness was gone. I had thought that I could stroll through the wood, that the witch's curses were nothing, and now I was in her garden, with dark forest all around me. And if any vestige of my confidence remained, any reliance whatsoever, any preconceived thing, all that was swept away by finding those birches at the end of the hour's walk, when I had expected to find them in the first 2 yards. Obviously, they could not be the same birches, and I might be in any forest whatever. I mean, is that by clinging to the belief that I was in a small grove in Ireland, I could not get any further. My only chance was to give up the idea that was doing me no good, and to get as far away from it as I could. That is why I examined the possibility of being lost in a birch forest somewhere in Russia. The wrong idea, perhaps, but it was better than the one that I clung to for so long, and that had left me all that time completely lost in the wood. Well, I travelled on through the forest a very long way, through the faint gleam of the birches. And at last I said, wherever this forest is, I'm obviously lost in it, and have nothing to guide me. What's the use of going on? A man who's travelled as much as I have is never helpless, especially if he has water somewhere near, and has got a box of matches, and a man who's travelled at all always has matches. So I decided to make myself comfortable for the night. Nothing burns better than birch bark, and I stripped off a good lot of it. Soon I had a fire that would burn anything I threw down on it, and I piled on branches that I broke off from the trees and logs and sticks that I found in the dark of the weeds, for I fancied a big fire would be necessary to keep me warm in these latitudes, where those dense birch forests grew, and soon as the night should settle down to grow colder. I felt no cold as yet on account of my long, hard walk, but I was glad of the warmth of the fire and glad of the rest. The fire was soon burning well, brilliantly lighting up the birches around me, but it did not show me the way, for bright though it made the ground that had been so dark to my footsteps, a circle of darkness seemed to have drawn me round, that was even blacker than it had been before. For a moment the clear, bright ground, for a few paces all around me, tempted me to try to look for my way again. But I had the sense to look at the darkness that hung so close all around, and to accept the obvious fact that I was lost, and to make it no worse by wandering. And after that I was really quite comfortable, lying on a few handfuls of twigs that kept off most of the wet, and getting all the warmth that I wanted from the fire. And warmth is one of the first of our necessities. The bright light of the flames added to the cheerfulness, and I settled down to wait for the dawn, which is early at that time of year, when the curse, as I gathered from Tuhei, usually lifted, apart from which I should be able to see my way. I looked away. Okay, here we go. The great hush continued, and I heard no sound at all from outside the wood. I got another damp log or two and threw them down on the fire, which was doing too well to be harmed by their being damp. and I settled down to try to sleep, with the fire in my face and a cool wind on my neck. But I could not get to sleep for a long time, and just as I thought that I was going to do so, I heard my first sound from the outside. The sound of a cock crowing from some cottage far over the fields. As early as that in the night, for at any rate in the wood. There was no trace of dawn. I listened for a while and it crowed again. Then I got the idea that whatever Tuhei had said, it was not so much the dawn that abated the curses as the cock crow that usually accompanied it, and came often a little before. So I threw a bit more stuff down on the fire, for it had sunk low, and as soon as ever I had it blazing well as I started off my journey through Witchwood. At this time, though I still had no point to make, for I had quite given up my futile belief that I knew the way to go. I had, as I had not before, a point from which I was able to move away, and that this at least was a help to prevent me moving in circles. So I set out, often looking over my shoulder, to see the fire behind me was receding as it should. In surprisingly short time I saw another light, and it was shining through the branches of the hazels before me, a pale golden light. It was the light of the priest's window shining over the fields. What was it doing at such an hour I have no idea, but that, of course, was no affair of mine. There it shone, and I walked through the witchwood toward it, and soon was out in the field where the cattle were, still lying or standing motionless, and I heard the corn crake again. I went back past the same horse that was standing still by the tree, and back through the hushed night. I came to the inn before there was yet any sign of dawn. For a moment I wondered what excuse to give, and the right idea came to me. I threw pebbles up at the window, and when it opened, I gave them the bare truth. I said I was lost in Witchwood, and they understood me at once. All people are suspicious of strangers, and any excuse that I gave them for being so late would have been examined very thoroughly. And it might have been a long time before they opened the door. The bare truth about Witchwood went straight to their hearts, and they let me in at once. Next day I saw Tuhei, and told them straight out his witch had won. Ah, and so she would, said Tuhei. Are there many other curses like that? I asked him. Being laid down hereabouts now. Ah, said Tuhei, there are not. Why is that? I asked. Ah, he said. I don't know what's come over the country. Witches are no good any longer. The wickedness has gone out of them. I don't know what's wrong at all, but it's not like it was in the old days. And with that, my voice is fucking sore. But we'll do more reading later on in the week, maybe next week as well. Oh, my throat is full of murder. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. There's a lot of reading. And my voice is full of murder. I sound like old Boomy, and Boomy is nowhere close to front. We're just murder fairies. Hold on, I gotta quote add that. Hold on. Quote add. There we go. Ah, maybe we'll fancy ourselves a cheeky game of mahjong. Let's say I may not be giving a whole bunch of commentary because my throat feels like it's completely wrapped in thorns. quest. Oh, you better bet your bottom dollar it's the quest. Alright. Let me get things. Oh, I also... You guys can hear the rain, right? The rain sound effect I have. I made this for you, Edgehead. If you want it, it's just... What do you mean, what rain? This has been playing the whole time. Guys. Guys. Oh. Oh. No, it's there. Okay, good. I figured I would. He's jerking my chain. Good. My chain needs to be jerked every once in a while. That sounds wrong. Okay. And so... This music you should not be able to hear. But let me check that this is the case. Yeah, okay, so you shouldn't be able to hear my other music. Good. This is such a bad idea. Not like that's ever stopped me. Did you bring me some strong drink? And my belly, for my little belly smells good. There's a beneath my bed. Alright, so these are triangulated, those are not. That I think is just a good move. That's just good business. There's a lot of these threes. Okay, there we go. I say, my petal's hair has gotten gray. The sixes are okay. Silent. Did you walk safely, safely? There's a lot of nines happening over here. But not what I need. And we always be friends. The seven's actually in the way. This is triangulated, but I'm gonna make a gamble. This 3 trianged, okay. That's almost okay. I see you and we'll go for that. Water is rising. Alright, this one... There are only that many, huh? Safely. Alright, let me flit that down. This... Alright, let's grab that. See what that bids. No, not much. Yeah, I see no reason to hold those. That west will go as well. These nines are okay. Those fuckers can go. We know about that now. I'm here swimming Forest Island. But you walk safely, safely over me, Grandma. The water is rising. Be a swimming Forest Island. But you walk safely, safely over me. Okay, so those are fine. This I've got suspicions. That too I don't know any remedy for. That's concerning. Okay, so this north is there. We can go here. That's gonna need to go. That's all fine. We know of that. That 6 is gonna need to go yesterday. This 1's alright. That 7's alright. That tree. We should be in good suits now. Okay, good. There's air beneath my bed. Okay. So the 9s are kinda trianged. Those 7s I'm gonna go for. These 2s feel dubious. Gonna grab that. For good reason. Okay. Silent. Did you walk safely over me? Alright, so that's not good. Alright, I'm actually gonna doubly know that in favor of these. These 2s are actually okay. In my dreams and in my speech, I might see you, and I might see you when I sleep. Good night, would I'll be swimming Forest Island. Did you walk safely over me? That's a bit dangerous. Oh, I just went over that in my head too. We might still be okay. That's all fine. The water is rising, the palace has gotten green. Be a swimming Forest Island. But you walk safely over me. Grandma, the water is rising, the palace has gotten green. I'll be a swimming Forest Island. But you walk safely over me. Those 7s almost look right. Those 5s are compacted. This 2 can go. This will go. We'll go here. This 4 I'm going to sacrifice because I see that. Those 9s feel good. I'm not sure about that yet. These 8s are compacted. Oh, let me not fuck that up. Outside, in my belly bells skin, air beneath my bed, and a whispers. And again, hover closely. Water is. Oh shoot! I thought I was okay. Alright, we can get it back. We can get it back. We can atone our sins. Despair not, Edgehead. Ever precious powers and the king's good. I don't want to do any of that. I don't like any of that. Okay, so I'm reluctant to do that. Okay, so let me go here. This is just unadulterated greed. But you walk safely, safely. It's 1, 2, 3. No, okay. That 6 I know something about, which makes me reluctant, but we've got to move, so. Alright, let's try here. This gives me a 5. I don't need that. Alright, so let me actually be wise about this. Those are trianged. This can go, perhaps. Gunning. That too I really need to get rid of. These ones are not good. Alright. Works for me. That 9 I'm gonna go for. I know that this 8's been matched. The 7s are trianged. I feel like I've seen a number of easts. Okay, so I've seen those. That west is easily moved. I'm gonna get rid of these. The south seem promising. They're not ready yet though. The 6 is bad. These 7s are somewhere. I'm going to get rid of this just to have the room for it. That's there. This can go. This gives me the 7s I need. Why do I need them? I don't know yet, but I do. Okay, those 7s are good. That's alright. These can go. That's a spot of bad news. Okay. That's not really. I don't know if I want to fuck with that necessarily. The norths I think are okay. We need to get rid of these. This 6 can go. We can start breaking that down. Grab that. This gives... Okay, this gives that. Which means these can go. This south is just a complete mystery to me. I'm gonna go for it. Okay. And I might see another. Okay, so that wasn't going to be possible anyway. There's Alright, we need to maintain a lead like this. Why is this so knotted up here? Alright, those 2s are in there. We could potentially do some big dick damage. I'm gonna go for it. That 5 needs to go. That's possible. Okay. That 8's gonna go. Those 9s are almost good. These can go. That gives me a 4. What's here? Those 9s are... there's something. Okay. Did you walk safely, safely? Alright, so that's where these went. I know a lot about very little. Let me grab that. I'm still trying to get here. The ones feel removable. Okay, so this 9, I'm just gonna yeet that. These can go. That's gonna come with its own side of regret. Is there nothing here? Okay, so we can finally do that. No idea if it was worth it. Well, I wasn't. Oh, it was not worth it. It was not worth it. Oh, Lord. Okay. Ooh. Okay, so... That's not great, but maybe. No. Oh, Edgehead's gonna be so mad. Alright, one more. I'm so sorry, dude. We're gonna get back up. We're gonna get back up. Okay. Okay, right off the bat. Can I get rid of this 4? No. I think I'm just gonna have to pass on that for now. These seem doable. I know of those. If I get rid of the 2s, there's that. These ones I'm reluctant to do. The 7s I'm not quite sold on. Those souths seem okay. Those are okay. These should be. Okay, the 7s are okay now. The 9s are not. What did I think that accomplished? These 6s are not. How are the 7s? 7s are actually fair game. Those guys aren't ready yet. The 5s are alright. 6s are still negatory. What's up with the 3s? I see 1, 2... That's not really a thing. Ooh, shouldn't have done that. Okay. 4s look okay. I see a lot of norths. Okay. The 1s I feel like are a good story. This can go. I think we gotta get rid of that. That's scary. Let's try this. Okay, so we got those. These can go. That can go. That can go. 2s are fine if I could get the 5s out. Ooh. I could do it this way. Those east seem not good. Okay. what's happened here. I'm gonna get rid of these because... Do I know where the other one is? Yes. Okay. The 6 I'm not sure about at all. That can go. These are fine. That's gonna have to go. These we were saving. That I digged up, so we know where that is. That east we know. 9s look good. 6s look good. 1s are fine. 7s are fine. 5s are fine. West should be good. And then the rest of this is cleanup. Alright. Okay, honey. I'm gonna go here because I need to access things. This 8. Alright, I'm not gonna wait for it. That I'll wait for. This 1 can go. Those 8s are not quite ready. 1, 2, 3, no. Okay, so... Why do I feel like that's available? There's a lot of 9s. I don't think it's enough, though. Okay. So, this 4... Good lord, my tired eyes are burning. I know something about this, right? I guess not. Okay. Those 7s feel good. That 3 I'm just gonna go for. This I'm just gonna go for. Those seem alright. This 5... I don't know jack shit about it. Okay. That was lucky. I had a passing knowledge of that. Those 9s are good. These 9s... Ah, that's what was throwing me. Okay. Those 5s are compacted, but I know where they are. That I'm gonna get rid of because I need to see. This 2 is not good. I'll do that. Those are okay. Alright, I should be able to clean this up. How the fuck is he ahead? What? Oh, jeez. Oh, man. Okay. I do not see what I'm trying to do. That's helpful. Okay, this 8 can go, that can go. These are okay. Yeah. What? That was close. That was an unapologetic sprint. They got fucked by no more moves at the end. Alright. Let's do one more. I'm awake. Let's go. Oh, sweet mother of garbage chutes. Okay, so those are triangulated. There's no reason not to go for that. Those souths are... he thinks... Okay, so let's go here. Grab those. The 2s are nowhere near. These easts are questionable. Those 4s are okay. I'm actually gonna go for this. To doubly know that. 'Cause that just makes sense. I'm gonna do that too, even though I'm reluctant to. You think the 8s? I'm not seeing that quite yet. Those 2s are of interest. This 7 I'd also like to file down. I think I need to file this down. Okay, so that can go. The north seem good, actually. Those 3s, there are a lot of... So let's grab that. Okay, 5 is there, that gives us that. Those 7s I'm gonna wait on. Oh. Well, I'm gonna hope that wasn't important. Okay, that's not gonna be of much help. Neither is this now. We could go here. Those give us that. This... what does that produce? Not much. Alright, these can go. Thought I saw something for the 4, but I guess I didn't. Let's go there. That gives us this. This gives me a 5. Alright, this 2... That 2 is in the way of nothing. Let's go here. Okay, so those 7s can go. I'm kind of familiar with that. Grab that. This gives a west. That's utterly unhelpful. This can go. These can be double matched. What's the benefit to that? Oh, this 8's just chilling. Grab that. I don't know where that is, which scares me. Okay, so that's where that is. This is here. We know where this is. That can go. Those 7s are still not great. Okay, so that's where this was. This now worries me. Uh-oh. Okay. Alright, worked out. I wonder if he finished that. He must have finished. I don't see either of these. That 9 I see. Not without help from the end. Okay. That's what I thought. I was like, there's no way. Those guys are okay. Did you walk safely? Okay. This isn't blocking anything, so I'm gonna go for it, because I need to move. Why is this so fucking weird here? Oh, there's no way. Can I double that? Nah, it was worth looking for, though. Alright, so that bit's fixed, but what about the rest of this fucked board? Alright, that's where that is. I coughed and moved my vision around enough for me to see that move. That was kind of funny. So that one can go. This finally is apparent to me. I'm not gonna save that. Ah, I should have done that differently. Okay, those 9s are good. Ugh. Alright, what's here? Safely. How? I thought I was clean on that. Alright, well, I wasn't. This is what happens when bravado happens. I think I'm taking too long to find the things because my eyes are tired. Alright, so this 7, yeah, just call it. Ugh. Alright, well, we've got some work to do next stream. That's okay. It wouldn't be a quest without some difficulty, but I will call it here. In the meantime, do not eat or drink any questionable substances. Make smart decisions. Do not die. Dying is absolutely forbidden. I will see all of you wonderful people at a later time. Take care, guys.